Remember that guy Duplay I mentioned earlier? Well, he would be hired to help run YouTube, essentially becoming the site's engineer, helping out in modernizing the site, fixing crashes, and all that stuff. But in 2010, Tins and Rabbit Snore would step down and Duplay would become the new head admin of the website.
I started using the site more regularly around the same time as Rabbit Snore and There Is No Pork left, and I've been impressed with the changes that Duplay has made. The forum seems more solid now, and I think he's done a lot of work to remove the deadwood, but I still think there is a huge flaw there, and that's because there are far too many moderators and staff. I remember looking at the site not so long ago, and I saw about 30 people there. And there seemed to be far fewer posts than when it was me and my group of 3 or 4.
Things would go fine for a while until Duplay and the rest of the mods were running low on cash to maintain their server lease. Duplay was barely of age and didn't have any reasonable means or knowledge to attain income at the time. The situation was so desperate that they hired Oz to be among their tech staff in exchange for him providing funds to maintain the site. That would lead to Oz bloating the site with unnecessary features without permission of the mods, who couldn't do anything about it since his money was what kept the site alive. He was a confusing addition to the mod staff by the community since nobody knew who he was, and it was apparent that Oz didn't even know what YouTube Poop was before becoming a tech manager of the site. But once his support was no longer needed, he lost his managerial powers. At that time, Oz also lost his job and his personal life was going down the crapper, so he didn't take being fired from YouTube all that well. At one point, he somehow managed to attain admin powers, which gave him full control of the site, so he was demoted from any important role completely. Then he tried constantly logging into Duplay's account until he finally succeeded. Oz, masquerading as Duplay, sent out various private messages to people, spreading lies and turning the community against each other, causing an entire forum war. It would be days before the real Duplay would return, that the situation would be settled. That's when it also became apparent that Oz added a key logging virus to the site which looked for user passwords. A whole site needed to be shut down and all its users temporarily moved to reactivated Planet Freedom. Not long after, YouTube would be back in order and nobody heard of Oz ever since. Although many YouTube's users apologized to one another after the incident, there was a new sense of paranoia and distrust among the user base. For a while, nobody knew who to fully trust and if Oz or somebody else started impersonating someone. Many cite this event specifically as the time the forum never fully recovered. Alright, let's break this up into a little bit of a funny story. In 2009, people would come across a British children's book author, Michael Rosen. Michael has uploaded various videos online of himself telling very short stories intended for children, and the YTP community became obsessed with his content. Eventually, Michael himself would take notice of this and he would receive complaints from parents for making very inappropriate content even though he wasn't the one responsible. So he started taking down videos with copyright claims to ensure inappropriate content wouldn't get recommended to kids. But in 2011, some people managed to reach out to Rosen and managed to change his mind. Rosen would actually sit down and watch YTPs made of him, and he would grow to appreciate it, and so a truce would be made.
Hi poopers! It's so wonderful what you've done with all my YouTube performances. I'm so grateful to you. It's been so wonderful to see my face turned into and all those words chopped up. I love you poopers. I love you.
He loves you.
He would later on speak publicly of his experiences, where he would refer to YTPers as teenage Pennsylvania masturbators. I'm not making that up, by the way.
So meanwhile, out there in America, I have become a cult of teenage masturbators. Teenage boy masturbators who turn my poems into sort of things about fucking sisters and stuff like that.
In the meantime, Walrus Guy would come to make an announcement that he would retire from making YTPs and Vaccinator would replace him as the next big polarizing figure within the community. His rise in popularity after Walrus Guy gave rise to some suspicion, with many alleging that he was trying to imitate the previous Pooper style on purpose to garner views. It also didn't help that Vaccinator made it apparent that he believed to be superior to most people because he had a higher subscriber count than them. He would also fall into some controversy over asking his viewers for money so he could buy a new computer to render his videos in HD. Asking your viewers for money? Dear God, who could do such a horrible thing? One notable contribution he would bring is being the first person to create 3D models of YouTube poop characters, which could be used to make animations in the Source Filmmaker. Unfortunately, or fortunately depending on who you ask, Maxinator would delete and create a new YouTube channel multiple times, claiming to leave YouTube poop for good only to come back not long afterwards. Eventually he'd fade into irrelevance and stop uploading videos completely. Regardless of whether or not Vaccinator was aware of it or not, his presence would symbolize a proper schism between YouTube and the wider YTP community. Most people that were getting themselves into YouTube poops were no longer browsing the YouTube website. Yes, there was some schism in the community in regards to Walrus Guy, but at least back then people would express their support of Walrus Guy on the site itself. This time, a lot of supporters of Vaccinator didn't even know what YouTube was before the drama. This had largely to do with the fact that the internet forums and interest in them started dying in general around the 2010s due to websites like Reddit becoming popular alternatives. Speaking of Reddit, on May 18, 2012, the r/montage parodies subreddit would be created, where users would share and upload videos of, well, montage parodies, which would explode in popularity around 2014 and cause YouTube poops to fall by the wayside on the mainstream internet. Some people even claim that MLG parodies will come to replace YouTube poop, but otherwise both communities remain isolated from one another. The most connection you get between communities is by some video containing both YTP and MLG in the title, and maybe some people complaining over kiddos using dead memes. There wasn't even an attempt at rating by either community, nothing worth mentioning at least. The MLG parody community remained more or less its own thing, before it would fall into irrelevance past 2016. The reason for this was that many channels would move on to create different content, or end up being closed down or deleted. The channels that continued making content on YouTube would become submerged into various Reddit meme communities, and continue making content of whatever was relevant on Reddit at the time. YouTube posts would continue being made, although then there was a way stronger emphasis of quality over quantity. Yes, YTPs weren't hugging the spotlight on the side like they used to, but on average the technical aspects and editing quality was substantially higher. The early 2010s would also mark a rise in popularity of creepypastas, which would influence YTP content creators to incorporate way more horror themes into their videos, giving the YouTube posts from that era a unique touch compared to the 2000s and modern day. But there's still more. The era would mark the beginning of a rise in reaction channels, some of which would primarily focus on reacting to YTPs. My opinion on them is mixed. On one hand, it does seem very unfair whenever a reaction video gains way more views than the original. But these types of videos also introduced me to a lot of quality YTPers back in the day, so they're okay, I guess? But I can be more specific. Trash, trash. You already know. The most interesting videos from that channel are a bunch of guys sitting up together to watch entire marathons of YTP videos. Which I can't get mad at because it's pretty clear that it's just a bunch of guys sitting down together to have dumb fun. The man that asks the right questions, like, why is My Little Pony in everything? He deleted nearly all of his reaction videos. No clue why, but to my recollection his videos were mildly amusing, because he would frequently overreact to stuff. Okay, now this guy was funny, because he took sexist and offensive jokes way too seriously all the time. It used to be very funny when he watched Snake Guide on YouTube poops with himself, and he was an overall unhinged character, but after a while he lost his charm. Special shoutouts goes to all the reaction channels that use plushies and dolls to react to videos.
Alright, wait, what the? I can do that? Wait, is that my new chaos power? Oh, yep, I spin dash. Oh, also my home attack. And my spin dash. Wait, am I doing tornado? Tornado?
This is why white people should not make reaction videos. Alright, enough jokes, time to get serious again. 2015 would be a dark time to be a YTPer. In YouTube it is a year defined by drama surrounding the copyright abuse. There will be continuous new incidents like on February 11th, 2015, when three popular YouTube poopers, Sind Tragedy, CoolCat001100, and That Guy That Poops would all have their channels taken down mere hours apart. There was an uneasy atmosphere as nobody expected such precise and seemingly targeted removal of channels and nobody knew who would be next. This would affect big YouTubers as well, with I Hate Everything's channel almost being completely removed over his Cool Cat Saves the Kids movie review. This would prompt a nostalgia critic to make a video on the subject and cause a new hashtag to trend, that being Where is the Fair Use? Although the hashtag would come and go like most Twitter hashtags, the protests worked. Sort of. It would still be half a decade before the copyright system would become lenient to what it is now. As far as I'm aware of, you can potentially have 3 or 4 different claims on your video, and none of them will restrict your video from being broadcast. Nowadays, the biggest risk to the content being removed isn't from copyright at all, it is from breaking community guidelines. Can't speak for how copyright affects ad revenue though. On September 2nd, 2015, Goop Videos would make a Q&A post on YouTube. Most of the responses were your typical shitpost answers, but a few posts had a very clear passive-aggressive edge to them, which heavily irked Emperor Lemon at the time. This attitude of passive-aggressiveness would not be exclusive to Goop Videos, but shared by CoolCat and CS188. There would also be a freak incident which would have to do with Awful Fawful being transgender. She decided to change her pronouns on her ChewWiki article from masculine to feminine variants, but one of the admins changed them for no other reason besides for a joke, even remarking that her pronouns could be changed to be mate, which Fawful felt deeply offended by and decided to leave the forum because of it. All of these YTPers just so happened to be individuals which were admired by or friends of Emperor Lemon who felt incredibly irked by such events. What finally pushed him over the edge was there would be multiple threads for years critiquing his videos, which in hindsight he himself admitted to be largely constructive in nature, but he was heavily overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of these posts at the time, and he was especially heartbroken once Stuart K. Riley, a YTPer he once viewed as his favorite, made the infamous downward spiral post. That would lead to M to create the equally infamous Word document expressing his discontent with the site.
The site as a whole became a lot more cynical. Rather than accepting and promoting the newest sources and styles, a greater and greater majority of members began to mock them. Those who were once on the cutting edge of YTP techniques soon resembled grizzled veterans who are no longer willing to change with the times. This started out as just a few people. However, since many of them were some of the most popular and respected people on the site, their cynicism began to overpower some of the more progressive opinions of newer members. Now, this whole process happened fairly gradually over the course of a few years. It was during this time when the general attitude of the site began to go downhill. They hate popular sources too. Clearly, the most maligned source in the eyes of YouTubers is a little television show by the name of SpongeBob SquarePants. It's actually kind of comical how much they hate this source, as I have witnessed multiple threads get shut down simply because the fuck SpongeBob circle jerk got out of control.
The overall quality of the doc is very mixed, because reading it you can easily notice that Emperor Lemon was very emotionally distraught and angry at the time, so there are various parts that feel disorganized and messy. Also, all the arguments about YouTube being overly elitist would come to bite him once he made a video bashing Behind the Meme YouTube channel, expressing discontent over how a newly popular channel gave an inadequate presentation of YouTube poops, and for quite a while was happy with the misfortune and harassment the channel would face. You know, the exact same thing he criticized the YouTube forums for doing.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
Now he would eventually feel remorse over the negativity brought to the channel, while the hypocrisy remains palpable.
For this whole time I was against Behind the Meme, it was predicated under the assumption that he had some sort of ulterior motive. Like he was making videos for money, or attention, or simply to take advantage of people, or because he was lazy. But never once did I consider that this guy might just be some fool with a genuinely good heart, who somehow stumbled his way into this position of influence by just sheer dumb luck. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Behind the Meme, this whole time, might have just been some naive guy with nothing but good intentions.
A few people who saw M's rants would try to capitalize on it, with one guy even creating an entire troll account to get a reaction out of M. He ended up creating a reaction eventually, but not in the way he'd expected at the time. Years later, the same person would have amends with Amp on private Discord messages where he explained to Amp why he was so hated. We never actually get to see the explanation, so it can range from Amp simply trying to ensure that his fans won't go after people mentioned in a Discord screenshot, or he might have not shown it due to sentimental purposes. You may never know. I can't hold it too much against Emperor Lemon's mistakes and how he acted. Since when this drama started, he was 17 or 18 years old. He was younger than what I am right now. Who am I to hold a 25-year-old man accountable for shit he did on the internet when he was in high school 7 years ago? Nowadays he makes quality documentary videos, and his content by many is considered one of the best the site has to offer. I also don't feel like holding a grudge against Sturdy K. Riley since it's apparent he moved on and changed a long time ago as well. Now he makes video game reviews, which is a great content to put on to relax on workday evenings. I would recommend starting out with his Army Man or NASCAR videos. Another legacy of the YouTube drama at the time, to give you perspective on how bad the situation had gotten, was when a collection of disenchanted YouTube users would flock to a thread dedicated to YouTube on Kiwi Farms. It was rated on January 27, 2016, almost 4 months before the Downward Spiral post would get made. The website is a modern equivalent to a 2000s trashy gossip magazine, or a collection of paparazzi photos of celebrities in scandalous situations or in the nude. The difference is, the site has a thread dedicated to just about every internet micro-celebrity you can think of. And if there is one thing internet micro-celebrities absolutely despise, it is somebody smearing them. So you won't hear the site commonly discussed. Heck, just to register it advises you to create a separate email account, because the farmers, they are not beyond devouring their own. Part of why making part 2 was so difficult was because I remained conflicted on whether or not I could use the YouTube Kiwi Farms thread as a source of information. But after getting advice from people wiser than me, I came to the conclusion that I can use it, albeit cautiously. The saddest part is that the thread in question is the most up-to-date archiving of recent events from YTP history, with there being no alternatives in regards to events past 2015, as just about every YTP wiki is horribly outdated. So sometimes threads like these are all you can get. And the people in the YouTube thread in question aren't just random blokes either, as the place functions as a sort of gathering ground for YTPers or former avid YTP watchers to vent their frustrations anonymously, albeit because of fear of getting ratioed on Twitter or getting dogpiled on some server or forum, or simply being able to make fun of or laugh at other YTPers in as nasty a way as they want with no repercussions. So I can't describe its user base as some sort of monolith, as they all come there for different reasons, and many don't stick around for too long. And they can also range from being former moderator staff members from a YTP server or forum, or people who haven't watched YTPs in ages and have no clue what's going on. Fortunately, while reading through several pages on the thread, it has become apparent to me that there are no instances of people's private information like addresses or bank accounts getting leaked. The worst I saw was select few instances of people asking to join some sort of Discord server en masse to start a raid, not a single one being of notable importance in retrospect. The vast majority of the thread consists of people sharing screenshots of their personal experiences, so it doesn't possess much of any real threat, but I do implore you to be careful about what you post online, as once it's archived, there's usually no way of taking it down. Moving back to YouTube, the website would be going through heavy hurdles because it started to lose active users fast due to various factors. Sometime after the Oz incident, everybody needed to be personally verified from the mod staff to properly register. There was a system that heavily favored those who knew somebody from the mod staff already, as an ordinary bloke would have a hard time registering. If somebody decided to register at the wrong time, they could fall under a radar, or if somebody from the staff would have a rare personal grudge and nitpick against you, you could simply be not allowed in. On top of that, once YouTube users became aware of the Kiwi Farms users looking on their website, they removed the browsing feature for guests, effectively shunning even lurkers. And if you somehow managed to weasel in there, many would take to viewing you as a stranger. Regardless of how popular you are, you needed time to build up goodwill. If you didn't fit in, if you disagreed with the wrong person, or be it in regards to politics or music taste, there was a chance that you could end up getting banned merely because of that. So you know, your typical Discord or Reddit moderator stories. With there being increasingly less active users, admins and moderators quitting, the site began to be short-staffed, leaving an opening on September 10, 2016, when the website would be hacked once again, this time by a random person who mistook YouTube for an anime website and did it for no other reason besides attention. The most I'm able to infer is that one of the admins probably had a weak password, making it easy to crack by a script kiddie. Fortunately, the hacker didn't have any intent of leaking everyone's user information, but if he did, things could have gone much more ugly. Ultimately, YouTube itself wouldn't last much longer afterwards, as the active user count eventually dropped to somewhere around 40, and continuing to run it with high server lease fees became unsustainable, and it would shut down on September 30th, 2018. Before it would shut down, the site would have one last grand event. I don't want to leave people under the impression that YouTube was just an irredeemable cesspool, so I want to tell you about YouTube Zine. The site's users worked together to create a PDF file where you can see detailed interviews of 4 different YouTube poopers talking about their works and interests, and tons of fan art created to commemorate the site. I highly recommend checking it out. And well, in spite of everything I mentioned about YouTube, it still wasn't something I'd call worse than most of the stuff you see on modern social media websites. Power-mad mods and people's personal information being leaked is unfortunately much more of a norm than many of us would like to admit. And well, if there is one more defense I can give is that at least YouTube was a passion project, not something that tries to hack your brain to become addicted. And 3 popular YouTube poopers since strategy. And 3 popular YouTube poopers since. Goddamn. I just remembered the goddamn Markiplier. Hello everybody, my name is Malcolm. What? Goddamn it. I got distracted by the whole things. And 3 popular YouTube poopers since strategy. Not strategy. The movie continues new incident. My name is Malcolm. And 3 popular YouTube poopers, Sin Tragedy,